These are stories of outdoor adventure and expert advice from folks with calloused hands. I'm James Nash, and this is the Six Ranch Podcast. Through an absolute miracle of technology, I have today Darren and Rob, who are currently in New Zealand in the future, as far as I'm concerned, because you are an entire day ahead of me right now. How are you fellas doing?
Well, I think we're having a good time. And I think if you're not having a good time in this part of the planet, the problem's yours, James. New Zealand, to me, is just a fantastic playground for people like you and I. And it's got a magic scenery. It's got alpine environments. It's got lowland. It's even got desert area in the center of the South Island. And it just offers a host of different wildlife and a host of challenges that brings. And Darren, Avon Valley Safaris, basically offers what I would call a top end area here where you can really go and hunt some amazing, world-class animals, Darren.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So based in the top of the South Island in New Zealand, and spent the last couple of days hunting with Rob and trying out some of the new products from Spartan, and obviously they're a real key to our operation with our guiding and the chance for clients to use such great technology and opportunity to really hone in on our hunting and utilizing those new products that we can put into the New Zealand environment.
Well, we're doing something pretty special for me here on the podcast today, which is a first. So during this podcast, we're going to be launching 2 new products from Spartan. And I believe, Rob, that this is the first time that you've used a podcast to launch new products.
It absolutely is, James. And I'm really hugely excited about these particular products. And if I can just explain the background behind them briefly, I think Spartan has built a good reputation, but it was focused on looking after European, and you'll get this completely, James, because you're very international, but it was really based at looking after European hunters. Now, in Europe, we don't really have the public land environment. So people that hunt tend to be pretty wealthy, well-to-do kind of people. And that has been our target audience. But that left a big problem for me in the States. And there's a lot of very good hunters out there using sub $1,000 rifles. And now my personal view is many of those sub $1,000 rifles are actually very good at what they do. I mean, Ruger, Mossberg, and Savage are knocking some amazing rifles out for under $1,000. And my challenge, and being an old man, maybe I put these kind of things before the business, is I want to be able to look after those people. And I haven't been able to look after those people well until now, James. And what we've done is we've really upped production. So we've kept the quality of the product the same. This is aero-grade alloys, really good quality carbon, but we're making them in more of a number now, meaning I can pass that benefit on to the end users. So on this podcast, James, I want to say we are launching a $100 bipod. Now, that will be a simple bipod. It'll have a 1-part leg. So it's very simple, but like all of the Spartan products, it's modular. So you can upgrade that leg at a later time if you want. So we're starting with the Javelin Light for $100. It won't have an adapter in it, James. And this was a real personal challenge for me because I hate buying something that doesn't have all the pieces in the box. But there's 2 reasons why I've done that. One is there's more and more rifle brands that you'll see in the next couple of years coming out with Spartan-ready rifles. And what do I mean by a Spartan-ready rifle? I mean, it has a Spartan gunsmith adapter in it at point of sale. So you don't have to worry about an adapter. It's already there. So I thought, well, I can do this. I can make a $100 bipod without an adapter. Moreover, if somebody doesn't have a Spartan-ready rifle, they get an opportunity to buy one adapter half price. I believe it's going to be $10. So it's going to cost you $110 if you're not Spartan-ready. It's going to cost you $100 if you are Spartan-ready. And then added to that, we're launching one other bipod called the Javelin Light TL. Now that is basically it's got a bipod with an adjustable leg. It's so it's got the little screw fit rubber locks on them, and you can extend that leg. And I'm really excited about that particular bipod because that gives you a host of opportunities for a cost-conscious price, meaning those Savage, Ruger, Mossberg, and other rifle brands like that can enjoy a well-priced bipod that's an absolute out-and-out hunting tool. And we've been using them over here, James, to great effect. And I always say about Spartan, we're not necessarily target people. Our DNA is mountain hunting. We're now coming off the mountains and we're offering subalpine products as well in the form of quad sticks, a silicon-bodied tripod. There's a host of things that you'll be able to use on that adapter. But today is a big day for us because to launch that on your podcast, I'm hugely excited because I think, and you will know better than I, but I think it will open up a massive marketplace and opportunity for those hunters using the budget sensitive can now become a Spartan.
I think it's a big deal. And I know that you have always cared about the American hunter. The reason that I know that is because you and I have had a conversation every month or two for like 7 or 8 years now.
Yeah.
Since I very first met you, just a guy that you'd never met before, walked through your booth at the sheep show, and you've asked me questions and I've asked you questions ever since. And I know that you're doing that with a lot of people in the States and around the world and getting feedback. And what you're talking about with some of these rifles like the Rugers and Savages and stuff, I haven't messed with the Mossberg, so I can't say, but it's honestly kind of a source of frustration for me because I grew up during like a very interesting time because when I started shooting, it was all about rifles that could shoot really fast for big open country because we didn't have laser rangefinders yet. And then when we got laser rangefinders, suddenly it opened up a world of understanding ballistics, and then scopes started to catch up and turrets and reticles, and then became the age of the custom rifle. And it cost $2,000 or $3,000 in the early 2000s to make a rifle that would shoot a 1 MOA group. And if you could do that with hand loads, like being just perfectly meticulous, you were really doing something. You had a special gun, and it was expensive, and it was difficult, and it was a one-of-a-kind gun. And then along came Savage and a little bit later on Ruger, and they started making these guns that were shooting really well. Suddenly they had barrels that were shooting well. The ammunition manufacturers got a little bit more precise, so the factory ammo was now doing what the hand loads had been doing, but they had these gritty, crappy triggers. So you had to have incredible skill and discipline with your trigger to get this rifle to do what it could. And then came the AccuTrigger and the various types of that. So now we had a very safe, reliable, inexpensive trigger that was breaking crisp at like 2.5 pounds. And dude, I can go down to the feed store right now and buy a rifle for $450 that will shoot a 1 MOA group with factory ammo. And it's like, this is crazy. It's crazy to me that all this has happened in my life.
Well, the dilemma is, how do you justify the expect? I mean, I've had exactly the same story as you, James. I was at Branded Rock Canyon. Journalist turned up with a $500 Ruger, an entry-level scope. He was doing everything we were doing with the really expensive stuff and some. And the guy could shoot. And I thought, this is a quandary. It's a quandary for me. And I grew up, I'm 61 now. I grew up with a really lovely Scottish guy. He got me into hunting. And I remember I started with a little Mannlicher, Steyr Mannlicher, little Stutzen. Shooting anything beyond 100 yards was considered unethical. All fixed scopes, blah, blah, blah. And I made the stupid schoolboy error one day. We started shooting out to 300. I said to him, Jim, we're getting really good at this. And he said, no, we're not gearing. He said, the gear's getting better. And he's absolutely freaking right. The gear is getting better, and it's enabling us to do much better things. And I'm not a specialist long-range shooter or anything like this. I was talking to Darren's two guides yesterday, young, hugely enthusiastic, passionate people. Katie's got a female guide and a male guide, and Katie does a lot in the Yukon as well. And these guys were just full of knowledge, and they were that age group where they've still got all the passion and energy, but they've also got the knowledge and enthusiasm. And it's really lovely to work with people like that. But in my sort of tender years now, I'm sort of trying to carry this deer off the hill last night, trying to keep my knees together and things. It was great to engage with them. And they've grown up with these products, James, that we
Yeah.
will have not had, so to them, it's not revolutionary. It's just expected. And I sort of almost laugh, like, if you could take them back 30 years and see the kind of tools that I was using, and now what you've got, it's moved on leaps and bounds.
Darren, I was looking through your website and I immediately went to the tab that had your guide profiles on there. I've been guiding for 25 years now, and something that is immediately evident to me, like I feel like I can look at a person and know a lot about who they are as a guide, just immediately looking at them. And in the pictures of your guides down there's just that glow that they have. There's that fire. And you can tell instantly, at least I can, that they are genuinely passionate, not only about the animals, but about the customer service. Like you've got quality staff down there, and I can see it in a heartbeat.
We have, Jason, and I guess that's one of the things I've always been very passionate about is, to me, our team, we're one, and it's our job to make sure that when you come to New Zealand and join us for a week or 2 weeks or whatever it might be, that we can meet your expectations and exceed your expectations in all levels. And so for me, when employing professional guides and all of our staff, our chefs, our housekeeping team, we all need to be passionate. We have to love that outdoors, love what people are here for, and enjoy. We're part of the family. I think you might have noticed on our website, we talk about being like a blind date. You're literally coming from the other side of the world to meet us, and you don't know anything about us other than what you've read or chatted with us on the phone before you're booking. And so it is really important for us to make sure that our team is well-oiled and that we can do everything. And I want to see every customer, every client leave us with expectations that have just been exceeded drastically, to make that work. This is their special trip.
Yeah. Well, you're a long ways from everywhere, right? So people who are coming there are committed. They want to do as much research as possible, and a lot of what we know about New Zealand as Americans is kind of shrouded in myth. It's a lot of word of mouth. It's a lot of rumor and hearsay, and I know a guy whose girlfriend went there or whatever. And when you go to somebody's website, like that's them talking about themselves. And nobody's going to be like, "Hey, I am aggressively mediocre at what I do." So that's why it's important to hear from dudes like Rob Garian who have hunted all over the world and continue to. And if he's down there saying, "Look, you've got incredible animals. They're taking good care of me. Their gear's in order. It's a beautiful place." That means something. That's different from somebody being like, "Hey, I'm good at what I do. I promised. Trust me, travel all the way around the world and see if I'm being honest or not."
Well, I'd absolutely vouch for that, James. I think what Darren's got on offer here is truly world-class and spectacular. I mean, even he has a Filipino chef who's been with you like a family friend for many years. I turn up the other night all dirty, unshowered and grubby, and I get offered these amazing oysters with caviar on and different flavors and things. And the guy's like Michelin. I get some good restaurants in the UK and such like. This guy's world-class. It's every... About me, I'd say I'm not an expert at anything. I just got lots of little flavor menus throughout the planet. And I want to be doing that until my legs and my knees and hips give up on me. And at the tender age of 61, that might not be, I might have a dog's life left in me. So I intend to live it hard. And if I can come to places like Darren's place, it's epic. You're in safe hands, you're well treated, you're well looked after. And having those young professional guides, I had a great day with them on the hill yesterday. And it's not about killing a stag, right? You know that, I know that. That's the excuse to be there. The fact that we did manage to kill a great stag on a beautiful piece. I mean, I'll send you some pictures later, but the environment was just unbelievable. I'm very lucky to get to some amazing places on the planet, but where we were yesterday, there's nothing, it's just amazing. And what Darren's got here, it's all native. It's all native forest. And what your listeners have got to understand, and many of them probably already know that, there are no native mammals in New Zealand. No, everything's been brought in, and they've all had to fight for an existence. You even had moose here, didn't you?
We did.
But you've got elk, you've got sika, you've got fallow, some whitetail. I never knew they had whitetail. They've got whitetail on Stewart Island. So, and then you've got the tahr. Well, tahr to me, Himalaya, but here they've got tahr, they've got chamois. So it's an amazing adventure playground. What I would say, or what I would encourage your listeners to do, if they want to come to New Zealand, they should make sure they're able to walk a bit. I mean, you can get about, but those guys burnt me out pretty hard yesterday. And I was pretty tired at the end of the day. I couldn't even keep my eyes open at 9 o'clock in the evening. But that's what it's about, isn't it? It's about having a great time, and it's about being with good people that can actually show you a great time, that understand, that actually care. And you and I will have been places where you don't get that kind of feeling, or you don't get that chemistry. And I think for Darren, he's absolutely passionate. If somebody's going to come here, they're going to have a lifetime of great memories. And I think he's done that very well.
The other thing I'd add to that, Jason, is that, I'm a passionate hunter myself. And so I want someone to come to my property, my lodges, and be part of my hunting family here for the week or 10 days they choose. And I want them to leave feeling as challenged and as excited about a day's hunting as I do. And, I've been lucky enough to hunt in this country all my life. So I think that's a real challenge for me as an owner and a key person in the team that we have here, is that we can all deliver that experience and that fun factor, because we are all passionate hunters. Ben, Kate, even our chef Mark, we're talking about, loves his outdoor hunting. He loves gathering products and utilizing them in our kitchen. And to me, that is a real, key part of the enjoyment and the X factor and the fun factor of your trip.
Absolutely. And just a quick edit here. I think you might have accidentally called me Jason. It's just James. Yeah.
James, sorry.
No, dude, it's all good. Okay. So something that you brought up here that I don't want to gloss over. When I was at some random trade show many years ago, there was an outfitter who'd received the very prestigious award of Outfitter of the Year, and he had been a sheep guide in northern Canada for like 50 years, something insane like that. And he was a weathered, broken little man who had done a good job for many, many decades. And I asked him after he'd received this award what advice he had for me. At the time, I think I'd been guiding for 17 or 18 years. And he said, keep him warm and keep him fed. And I really wasn't expecting that. And it changed everything about the way that I guided and outfitted after that, because what he was really telling me was control the things that you can control so that somebody has a good experience. You can't control the weather. You can't control animal movement or moon phase or, all the things that are just out there that really do affect the hunt. But if you are wired tight on your lodge, and if you have really good food and you do what you can to keep your hunters comfortable, that's what they're going to remember. I mean, those memories endure so much longer than everything else. And it's reachable. It takes effort. It takes expense to do those things, but that is what makes the difference. And the fact that, you're working with this chef who's really trying to style people out, that tells me that you care about your client's experience. That's a big deal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that is what I drive for every day. I don't spend a lot of time guiding. I do a little bit, but my skills and my utilization of my role was to oversee the whole week for that client and make sure that we are delivering and exceeding in each piece. So if they want to add a trophy on, or they want to add some shopping on in a city nearby, or they want to go, their wives want to go hiking, or out to taste wine here, whatever it might be. My role was to bring that together and bring all the pieces of the puzzle to give that really warm, fuzzy feel that you get from enjoying your time in your unknown piece of your trip.
Darren, let me ask you some New Zealand questions. Can you tell which part of the country someone comes from based on their accent?
Sometimes.
Sometimes. Yeah.
Sometimes we can, yeah. But generally, we would probably struggle to pick it up immediately. But by midway through the trip, you can pick up those little differences in either dialect or however you want to put it, accent.
Because Rob, you definitely can.
Yeah, I can. But most people I'm meeting over here, James, are Brits that have escaped the UK. So this morning there was the guy here and I said, he sounds like he's from Wales. He said, that's because he is from Wales. And then I was up at Nelson the other day, fly fishing, and every other person I met was a Brit that's probably fed up with living in the UK and, come out here for a holiday and thought, frick, I need a bit of this. So there's a lot of British contingent over here now. And I've been coming to New Zealand since I was 29 when I first came to New Zealand, because in a former life, I used to be in aviation. So I was working a lot with Air New Zealand. I'd be out here 4 times a year. So it's a place that I'm very fond of. I don't know the North Island at all well, because I did all my work in the South Island, and I'm a brown trout fanatic. And really the South Island is the place for brown trout. So, and I've done some fantastic fishing on this trip. I got helicoptered in to a couple of great rivers, James, dropped off. I mean, I ended up catching an 8-pound 7 wild brown trout in a pretty small bit of water on a 4-weight rod. And probably if I'd been any good, I'd have landed a few more as well. I hooked a few, but lost more. And then after that, I thought, you know what? Because I like walking, I'm going to trek up to where that helicopter dropped me off. Right, which was 20-kilometer round trip, so 16 miles for you Americans. And I trekked up, did it well, took a bottle of wine, took some beef, cooked it on a hot stone. I was living in luxury in my little bivvy tent, enjoying the wine with the sandflies, which can be pretty brutal, and got up to the gorge where the helicopter dropped me off to find 2 fly fishermen. Now, this is not like America. You find these rivers are small and they don't hold a lot of fish. If there's 2 fishermen in front of you, you give up and go home or go and find another river. So I went, oh no, I've done 10 kilometers up here to find 2 fishermen. Well, if I'd done my homework properly, I would have discovered there was a little farm track up the side of the river. So I walked the whole river, right, from where it joined another river, wore my Sims wading shoes out. They had holes in by the time I got back. And I was just but do you know what? I had a smile on my face at the end of the day. And I thought, well, you never stop learning, Geary. And I had a good time, but didn't even see a fish that day. I had to get into that gorge to find those fish. And I crossed a lot of good water. So you'll walk a lot of water to find good fish here, because lots of people are into their outdoors here, be it hunting, fishing, whatever. But yeah, I'd encourage your listeners, if they get it, this is something that's been aspirational for them for some time, think about doing it. It's easier for you Americans to get to New Zealand than it is for me to get. This is like me going to Africa for you guys. So it took me 36 hours door to door to get here on this trip, which is pretty heavy. Wow, I was ready for a shower at the end of the time. And I'm sure the people I was sitting next to probably thought I was ready for a shower as well. It's a long way.
I think it's a pretty good trek for us too. Like when I went to Australia last year, it was like 49 hours door to door. It's a long ways, but it's the other side of the planet. It's all right. It beats sitting on a boat the entire time. What did that brown trout eat? That's a big fish.
That was a big fish. I'll send you some pictures after that. I probably had 8 fish over 5 pounds.
Right. What fly did he eat, Rob? Don't hold back on me.
No. I had a parachute Adams. That was number one. Yeah, that was small, tiny little fly.
Classic.
And then I was also, some of them were not coming up, so we'd use like 18 inches of like nylon with a little strike indicator, just a bit of wool, and a tiny, tiny little nymph like a pheasant tail. but
Yeah.
so exciting. You're hunting. I mean,
Yeah.
you're watching these fish, and I was too slow on a lot of them. You know, Greg was losing his shit with me, really, and said, go on, Kieran, you've got to move quicker on these." 'Cause I literally was going, oh, and you'd see the white of their mouth before you see the strike indicator, and I can't look at both. So I either had to decide, am I looking at that fish's mouth or I'm looking at, because if you didn't see that thing, the minute it stopped, they were gone. And you
Yeah.
don't get another chance at these. They
Yeah.
are so nervous. They're not like the rainbows that I'd get probably back in other places. They are really, really, they don't get to that size without obviously knowing what they're doing. And some years, and Darren probably might correct me on this, they had this mouse explosion population. So maybe every 7 years you get loads of mice. Well, these trout start eating mice, and then they'll put on pounds. So a 7-pound fish will go to a 12-pound fish. And Greg, who's our distributor in New Zealand, took me out. He said, I caught a fish with a rat, not a mouse, a rat, still, and it's still eating a rat tail out of the fish. I mean, how freaking big's that? So it's a great playground. And what, just getting back to the Spartan bit quickly, I know I always bounce all over the place. What Spartan's now doing is endorsing certain lodges, right? So they're lodges that I have a good personal relationship with, that I believe are offering something great. And then if they're Spartan endorsed, it means if, like you were saying about, if they've got good rifles, good optics, that's key for me. I also want to make sure they've got good support systems, because the shot I had yesterday was incredibly challenging. It wasn't a long shot. It was 260 yards, which is not drastic, but it's
Tell me more about it. We'll get to the shot, but let's hear a hunting story.
okay. So yesterday, well, the day before, we went out looking for stags, and we spent the whole afternoon, and they've just started to roar here, which is really exciting. So you've got these valleys, these gorges, and you just sit and wait on the top of a mountain, and you are on the top of a mountain. I mean, you're looking straight down into these gorges, and you're seeing these. They're not holding hinds yet, I don't think, are they? They're just moving around at the moment, testing each other out.
They're just jostling for space at the moment. They're definitely roaring well, and they're starting the rut, but they're not really holding hinds, so they're not fighting it out just yet. They're kind of pushing each other around and just swapping spaces.
So that if I were to be dealing with Rocky Mountain elk during that phase of the rut, that's a real vulnerable time for them. That's a time where I can probably call in a bigger bull.
Yeah, a little bit the same here. We probably wouldn't get them to call in just yet, but give it another 10 days. Once they start, the hinds are cycling, then you can definitely call them in. And a lot of the bow hunting we do, we will call them in, and we'll still spot and stalk, but we'll try and set ourselves up in a draw or somewhere where we can draw them up that draw towards us or on the opposite side, so that we can get a good bow shot at them.
But we would have seen probably, I'm going to say, maybe 12 stags over the first day and the second day, but they were very selective on what they wanted to take out and harvest.
Yep.
So we were after the right stag, and pretty only saw a couple of those that we thought were old enough and that were primed to harvest.
It's really important to us to make sure that animals we're harvesting or trophies we're taking are mature, and at the the end of their life, that we're getting the very best out of them, and we're doing it right by our environment. So we spend a lot of time glassing, a lot of time looking over any defects we can pick out and talk about those sorts of things. So we'll pass by a number of animals over a week hunt where we just say, hey, look, that's not mature, or maybe if we've had a tough growing season, they haven't grown out as well, or they're missing a tine or whatever, we'll make sure that's very clearly discussed. And if choice is to leave it, we'll move on and keep on hunting. So over the 2 days with Rob, like I said, we've seen a number of pretty awesome stags, but I can think of one in particular I had a look at. He was only a 3-year-old, so we were like, no, well, he needs to, another 3 or 4 years, he'll be twice what he is today. So you definitely don't want to take a trophy like that.
But a lot of these shots, sorry, James, go
on. Well, I love herd management stuff. So what age class do you tend to look for? Like when do you consider a stag to be like to kind of know if he's going to do it or not genetically? And then at what age do you see them max out? Because I think there's a lot of just bad information out there about this.
Really good question. So we would generally think that you would see the best in a stag, or see the potential, sorry, is the right word to use, in him by the time he's 3. And we would consider him to be mature and good takeable trophy from in that sort of 6 years onwards. So
Yep.
you can definitely tell after even year 2, you're getting a pretty good idea. And by year 3, you're going, last year he was good, this year he's even better. Then you've got a good roadmap in front of you that says that genetic is going to carry and be worthwhile taking that maturity. If if he's a 6, you'd expect to see probably the best of what you're going to see.
Do you
What
pull
about your
teeth?
elk, James?
Yeah,
Would it be the same?
it's not. It's very
No.
much not. Do you pull teeth to get their age?
We can do, but generally we see enough over a year, and we kind of can tell pretty well. But we can definitely pull teeth to get an accurate age. But we can see by the muzzle, the sunkenness of pedicles, those sorts of things. We can tell a lot. And that's why we find the Spartan gear really good for us. We can run a spotting scope. We can get we can use our phones to bring up that really close and have a good look at what the facial effects are. Often the body, we can tell by a bit more of a swayed back, and just the physical keys that will tell you that that's an older stag. And very rarely will we get it wrong.
Yeah. Well, on our Rocky Mountain elk here in Eastern Oregon, what we tend to see is that at age 6, they're pretty well mature, and that's kind of who they're going to be. You might see them go up or down maybe 30 inches, depending on the previous year's grass quality, but we don't see much change between ages 6 and 12. And there's just so much information out there that's like, no, you got to let that one go. He's going to be bigger next year. But what we've found, based on our data, which is getting to be fairly substantial, is that if you see an animal that's physically mature, like he's muscular, he's got a big full belly, his hips are full, like he looks like a big, muscular, physically mature animal, that's about as big as he's going to be. So if you don't like him right then, don't expect him to be bigger next year. And if you don't like him and you pass on him, know that he's going to go breed a bunch of cows, and he's going to pass along those genetics that you don't like. So it's a challenging thing, especially in scenarios like where I'm in, where I don't have any hunters who are interested in shooting a management animal. Everybody wants kind of the best of the best. So it can be a little bit tricky there, but ultimately it's up to that hunter what makes them happy. But yeah, that's very interesting that you're able to start really seeing their potential at such a young age. Super cool.
Same with hinds or does, about hinds in the red category. Then we do a lot of work through the off season and looking, if we've got hinds that are showing defects or smaller body structures, things like that, or just getting in that real age category, we'll take those out as part of our cull. And that's one of the awesome things that we own a small business called Premium Game here, which is all about wild animals processed for human consumption. And one of the great things for me owning these two businesses side by side is that everything we cull out of our hunting areas, we can then utilize that meat by putting it through that factory and being able to supply it to the public and to restaurants and so forth.
That's so cool. And it's such a miss in the United States. We have the ability to move wild game into schools. We can donate it to food banks, but we can't sell it in restaurants or grocery stores or anything like that. Now, there's pros and cons to that, and I understand where it comes from, because by 1900, our market hunting had really done some damage to our wildlife populations. So I know where it comes from. But we also have instances where specific wildlife populations are far too high. They're too high for the good of anything. And in those cases, I would really love to be able to see mechanisms to harvest those animals and be able to get them into restaurants and things like that. The Maui Nui Venison Company has managed to do this with axis deer in Hawaii. So they go out at night, they head shoot animals only, and they have a USDA inspector with them. And then there's a clock that starts as soon as that animal is hit for how long before it is cleaned and hanging in a cooler. So we're making a little bit of progress there, but what you guys are doing, I think, is such a cool model, and everybody is winning in your model.
Yeah, it's really important for me as part of that conservation, is recovering that trophy, recovering that carcass, whatever it might be, and making sure that we can do the best by it. And so we've kind of got three models here at Avon Valley Safaris where our first priority is obviously we get the photos done, get the cape and the trophy part sorted, and then get the carcass recovered as quick as possible. If we can't recover it as quick as required by government law, then we go for option 2, which we would lift it out with a helicopter or lift it out with a machine trailer, and then we would get that back to a chiller, and we're able to donate that into a different market, so like of your homeless or your less fortunate people. So I'm very
British.
Yeah.
I'm very passionate about making sure that we utilize the best we can out of it.
Don't joke, James. It's going that way. Oh, don't even start me off on politics right now. It's just,
I wasn't trying to start on politics.
yeah.
Just
No,
ribbing you.
I've come in the last 40 years in the UK. It's come from a place that I was proud to grow up in, and now it's just very sad to see what's going on there. Where you think you've got your challenges in the States, we're 20 years ahead of you guys in not a good way, and it's
you've still got a lot of good going on and a lot of good folks.
Yeah.
I was just looking something up. Speaking of the UK, the brown trout that we have here in the United States, going back to brown trout, came from 2 different locations actually, and they came from a reservoir in Germany, and they came from a reservoir in Scotland called Loch Levens.
Right. Yeah.
And I have some.
That's amazing. I didn't know that about Loch Leven. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have some journals from the high lakes in the Sierra Mountains in California, and they actually write down whether they were Loch Levens or German browns because they were still distinguishable at that time.
Yeah. That's amazing.
The brown trout that are in New Zealand came from Loch Levens.
Yeah.
So those are UK brown trout.
Yeah.
Those are not German brown trout.
All came over on ice, eggs, and sitting on ice beds. It's just amazing. And Patagonia's the same. There's a lot of similarities between Patagonia and New Zealand, even the fauna. But the efforts that these early people went to bring wildlife and fish to these new countries was incredible. Yeah.
It is amazing.
Most people don't know, James, that New Zealand literally has no predators, and that's one of the challenges, but also one of the real bonuses of what we've got here. And we have no snakes, no real poisonous spiders, no coyotes, no nothing, and so no ticks, no. So when we see an animal like a red deer or a Pacific goat or even a wild boar, they generally don't have any predators, and so the numbers do need to be controlled probably more here than anywhere in the world because of that and the damage they can do to our fauna.
Yeah, the government over here, it's quite an interesting dilemma, really, because and you might correct me if I'm wrong, Dan, but you get the impression from the government that they don't want to see any non-native species. But then my argument to that as well, people shouldn't be here then, because the Maoris they only made it 500 years before Cook did, and the Moriori people, I think, got eaten off, basically died out. So it's an interesting one for sure. But I mean, the country would be very sad if it didn't have these beautiful rivers with fantastic brown trout in, and to see the views that we had yesterday without red deer, I think it would be missing something. I think they fit really well here, and naturally they've done amazingly well.
So I think that there's a key difference to be made when we're talking about non-native species. There are non-native invasive species, and and then there are non-native introduced species. And after a certain amount of time, an introduced species rolls into a category that's called naturalized.
Yeah.
And a good example of that in the United States is carp, right? We've had carp for a very long time. They are non-native. They are invasive in many areas. However, they've been in a lot of these waterways for so long that the ecosystem has adjusted to their presence, and they are a naturalized species. Um, it's such an easy button, and kind of like Disney biology, to just break stuff into native versus non-native. And it also requires us to pick a very specific time in history and say, okay, this is the time that we're going to consider our native species. If you roll it back farther, you have a different set of species. If you roll it forward, obviously you have a different set of species. But it just doesn't take into account change, which
Yeah.
is a normal thing for every single environment and ecosystem. And humans are changing those environments. We can't ignore our own presence there, and we're part of it. And I think it's okay. We manage for the greatest good that we can and do our best, and we're going to make mistakes, and we're going to make adjustments. And honestly, that's the way that your business has gone, Rob.
Yeah.
I've seen you come out with products that were mistakes.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I've bought them, and I don't use them anymore. And then I've seen you come out with products that I don't leave home without.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
want to get to that real quick, because we started talking about bipods, and then I got distracted by fish and every other damn thing. Darren, if one of your guides was sitting in here, I bet that they would agree with me on this. I would rather have somebody shooting a Civil War musket off of a bipod than $12,000 Gunworks that was shaking like a wet dog.
Absolutely. All day long.
Yeah. Rob, your bipods that we're launching here today, I was just trying to find some references for things that weigh the same as they do.
Yeah.
And your bipod weighs the $100 bipod. It weighs less than a smartphone.
Yeah. Yeah.
It weighs slightly more than a deck of playing cards. That's a
Well,
big deal.
It's so light. Why wouldn't you leave home without it? Right?
Yeah.
And it lives on my Bino Caddy, and it's there all the time. I actually posted something on our social media the other day because a guy did a review on it, and he ripped it apart. He said, I don't like this. It's only got one moving leg. And I leave it behind. And I actually phoned him up and said, well, the very things you don't like about it are the very things I really love about it. In the fact, and I can say that without being arrogant, because some of those things I wasn't responsible for. But I said, and he said, well, I forget to bring it. And I said, well, you can't blame me on that. Do you remember your bolt? Do you remember your ammunition? Do you remember your spot? I just don't like a bipod stuck in the rifle. And people will start to understand this now, because maybe you do want your bipod on the rifle, and for certain applications, you would. We do military stuff, and those bipods can be removed, but they can stay on as well. But basically, the whole ethos of this Spartan Ready rifle is not just about a bipod anymore. There are a host of different products, and you will have tried many of them, James, and you're my biggest critic, but I listen, because that's how we get better. I'm not arrogant about these things. I listen to professional guides, and a lot of the products you're now seeing coming from the Spartan stable are developments of James Nash or Flintstock, really top hunters. And I'm saying, well, I'd be stupid not to listen to those people, because, as I say, I'm not an expert on anything. I have little flavors of everything. So I have a great journey. I try lots of little flavors, but what I'll do in Scotland might be totally different to what you do in Oregon or what Darren does in New Zealand. But if I can come and inject myself in these little places and learn from these people, we can only get better. And I'm really immensely proud of where the Spartan brand is going now. But my big concern has been, we're aspirational for 90% of the US market. And I don't want to be aspirational. I want to be able to, there's nothing wrong with a Ruger. There's nothing wrong with a Savage. Let's get a support system. Getting back to your flintlock analogy, I use exactly the same thing. I say people worry about their optics. They worry about their rifle. They spend 10 grand on doing that. They don't worry about the soft body tissue that's supporting the thing. Waste of time. If you can't get a stable platform, You can be the best in the world, but if you're not a stable platform, you can screw it up. So the whole Spartan ethos is limiting the opportunities to screw things up. And even I will get it wrong from time to time. But yesterday, the hunt really put a smile on my face because we had a really difficult, challenging shot position. It wasn't 800 yards or anything crazy like that. It was a manageable distance. I don't like shooting beyond 300 really, because the opportunity for screw ups just goes through the roof. But I will do it, and I have done it. I'm not lying. But so I was comfortable with the distance. It was the right caliber. What I wasn't comfortable with was my shooting position, because, and you all have had this, shooting downhill on mountains can be really difficult because rarely can you lay down. It's particularly in New Zealand with tiny little rocky outcrops. If you don't get it right, you're going to roll down with it. You'll be down with the deer before you know it anyway. Indeed, Katie fell off yesterday, didn't she? Well, she was videoing, but she's all right. She only rolled a bit, but it really steep ground, immensely challenging shot platforms to shoot down on an animal and get. Well, with the Spartan Hotlight, we were able to get me locked in, little tiny tripod locked in. We're running, blasting off it. Then I put the rifle on it. I said, I'm nested. I'm super solid here. And that deer died with one shot, which I always like. Doesn't always work that way. I make mistakes just like everybody else, but I limit those mistakes because of that Spartan gear. And I say to people, I say, you'll spend all this money and yet you don't worry about your support. And yeah, a pack will work in a certain environment, but I like to lock the rifle into something. So I'm not slipping forward or slipping backward. I'm just limiting chances for mistakes. So those little bipods, that $100 bipod and that $150 bipod, weighing nothing, I'm trying to give people an option now and saying, this isn't a range bipod. It's not a target bipod. There's plenty of other things I'd use for that. But if you're serious about your hunting, check these little guys out, because we haven't cut the costs. We've cut the cost by ordering masses of them and passing that product saving onto the customers. Because if I was 30, James, I'd want to run a big business and grow it, blah, blah. When you're 61 and the toilet roll of life is getting lower and lower. Every time I pull a bit more off, the knees a bit. I want to make great products, and that's what I'm passionate about. So that's why I listen to people like you, and we've had some heavyweight conversations in the past where you've been honest enough to say, I don't like this, I like this. But you will learn that I learn from you, and I actually do change things. Yeah.
I know you do.
Yeah.
And a great example of that was the screws. Do you remember that conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. And you
said I was having fits because I don't own metric Allen keys, and I was like, "Oh, what's happening here?" I was like, "Let's just go to Torx. Like that's so much better." And then you did it, and it's better. I love it.
Yeah. So we do learn. Now I'd complain that my Torx could be a bit bigger, but Torx was a no-brainer. And I'm really proud of the team as well, because I've surrounded myself with some very gifted people. And it's like a family. It's a bit like Darren, what he said. If you've got a good family of people around you, you can have these honest conversations, and you're brave enough to make decisions. And there is one inherent advantage about being small, and Spartan is small, is we can move quick, right? We can develop stuff fast, where a big company brand, and I understand why, but they'll take 2 years to bring something out. I can move in 3 months.
Yep.
And now we've got Spartan Operations, which does all the military, your former life. We're looking after people like you in your back life, and basically we've got all of these little SF units we're working with. Well, I'd be foolish not to listen to those guys, right? They're cerebral people. They know what they want. And we developed a tripod for 50 cal rifles, a sniper unit, and I'm really excited about that. Different applications, different tools. Some will migrate back to the competitive shooters in the States, I think. But I'm working with great people doing that, like Chad Pierce at Barrett. He's their firearms instructor. He's a lovely man. And that latest Spartan product was his idea. It wasn't my idea. We just glued them together. And like people like you, people like Orf, great pick Joseph von Benedict, they're all good people. They all seed. And I'd become really, in essence, a glue pot for good ideas.
Yeah, you've done a brilliant job, and you bring your humility into it, and then add that to the fire of wanting to improve. And that's where this stuff comes from. So the other big announcement for this podcast is Darren has invited me to come down to Avon Valley Safaris and bring a group of 3 people with me. We're going to be doing that in 2026. So, Darren, talk to me a little bit about what that week is going to look like, and then I'll tell people how they can get the opportunity to be involved.
Thank you, James. Yeah, so we my plan would be for you to come down and spend, hopefully 7 days with us here in the lodge, and in that time we obviously love to go and hunt a big red deer trophy with you, a red stag. But there's a lot more here. Yeah, we've got fallow, we've got wild and arapara rams, we've got tahr, we've got chamois. So I would love to take that chance to show you a bit of the South Island of New Zealand and what we have here and the opportunities and the fun. But it won't all be about hunting. I'll be really interested to take you and show you through our meat business. I'd also like to get a little bit of touring in. So one of the things we specialize in is touring outside of hunting. So we try and get away for a couple of days and maybe out to Marlborough Sounds and do some fishing, or maybe up some of these rivers where Rob's been and left us a fish that we could catch. So heli fishing is pretty common for us. We get out a lot. So I would, I'll make the week whatever you would like to. And obviously over this next 12 months or 8 months, we'll chat a lot about what you want to achieve, why you're here and what you'd love to see and the industries you'd like to get a better understanding of. So we'll certainly welcome you down.
Well,
Can I add something? Oh, sorry, James, you go on first. Yeah.
That's so amazing. I'm so looking forward to this. So, just before we go any farther, folks, if you are interested in coming down and going on this hunt with me, shoot me a message on Instagram, 6 Ranch Outfitters, and then we'll figure it out. We'll figure out who's going to go, and I'm going to host this trip, and we're going to go down together and have a wonderful time and get to experience the best of what New Zealand has to offer.
And I'm going to throw something in here because I think Darren sort of almost, the deer here are deer that you won't find anywhere else on the planet. So if you've got listeners that want to shoot some amazing trophy, this is the place to do it. And there's lots of other things on it, but you look at these things and they're just, I mean, I've grown up shooting Scottish deer. You're going to come to Scotland with us this year, aren't you? So
yes, sir.
It's not going to be like this. We'll have a great time. We'll dress up in kilts, so we're going to have, but it's a completely different flavor. Doesn't mean to say it's any better or any worse. It's just a different flavor. But if you've got listeners that want to shoot something that is just in another class, this is the place to do it. And Darren has put a lot of passion into that. And what I really like about it is you're in native vegetation. It's almost like a bit rainforest. It gives me a bit of a rainforest feel about this place. It's an epic place to be. So I'm very lucky. I get to go to all these wonderful places. So I like it here, James. It's clearly a good place because I get invited to do some wonderful things. And what Darren's done here is freaking amazing.
So is it safe to say that this is a Spartan endorsed lodge?
This will definitely is a Spartan endorsed lodge. All of his guys are using our gear, and we'll have a couple of these in Argentina. We're going to have some in Africa and such like. As we grow, it's getting those guides on board, and we haven't done a good job at looking after the guides until now. We're now on the guide program. We're now doing more. I want to be able to give guides a good reason to use Spartan because they're our ambassadors. Right.
Yeah.
We haven't been big enough to promote. We're a little company, so we don't have an inexhaustible budget of cash. So if we can help the guides get on it, that's brilliant for us. And Atlanta this year, which was a disaster really because it snowed, nobody got there. It was great for me because it gave the guides a chance to come up and say, well, how do I get on the program? So I did a really good job and I got HS Precision stocks on and Manners. So they're now making Spartan ready stocks. That's
really
huge for us. Yeah.
I built a rifle on a Manor stock last year, and it's one of my favorite guns.
Yeah, well, those guys will now fit adapters for you as well. So
nice.
So shout out to Manners and HS, and they make some fantastic gear, both those companies.
Well, yeah. I mean, both of mine, I put the guide adapter in and just took it over to my drill press and went and And it
It's
was so easy to put that adapter in. I'm not the guy that you want to have be doing like fine mechanical anything. And yeah, it was super easy. Spank some
it's
JV weld in there and call the macaroni.
It's the cheapest adapter we make, and it's the best one. Yeah,
Yeah.
you've just got to bleed a bit and drill a hole. But
Yeah.
I think you drill a hole, you file and forget. It's in there. It's not cluttering up the real estate, and quite a few like Weatherby have just come out with a rifle that's got two adapters in, because if you're hunting in Asia or New Zealand, perfect example, where you've got those real angles, it's nice to have that adapter further back as well, so you can get more degrees on it. I mean, I couldn't have taken a shot in, where was I? Tajikistan, shot an ibex, and it was a crazy angle. I wouldn't have been able to get it without that adapter being further back. And
Yep.
I was using a mini tripod on that as well. But yeah, I mean, I get plenty of time to play with the kit. I get plenty of time to use it from the Arctic to the deserts. And I get plenty of time to play with good people like you. And I'd be the idiot if I didn't listen. So if I can glue those environmental issues and those good minds together and come out with products, why not? I mean,
Yeah.
our biggest selling product now, James, is that Springbok bipod. We
That
sell
thing's
more of
awesome.
those. And you will know better than me. So turkey hunting, big thing in the States. I've
Yep.
never even done turkey hunting, but I walked onto the Mossberg stand and they've got like turkey Terminator shotgun, all
Yep.
camouflaged with a sling swivel stud at the bottom. I said, so I put a guide adapter on, and the guy that ran Mossberg, he said, I'll get 1,000 people come here and try and sell me stuff that I don't want. This thing for turkey hunting, because you can imagine you're sitting on a tree dead quiet, you got your shotgun mounted on that Springbok, bang, you're away to go. So I think there's another market for that Springbok. And what we've done now, and again, not my ideas, other people, Ulf Lindrock came up with the Springbok idea because he has a contract in Scandinavia for removing red foxes where they encroach on silver fox. He might shoot 6 foxes in 2 months, but he's got
Yeah.
to be quick on them. So he doesn't get much opportunity. So if I'd been any good, James, I'd have done this product 6 years ago when he asked for it. But we got caught up in the Arctic, and it got so cold, the snow machine wasn't working. I got a frost damage dye. It wasn't very sexy. So we spent the time developing the product, and we used silicon as opposed to rubber. Now, silicon is not temperature sensitive like rubber, and so rubber will split or get too stiff. The silicon's brilliant. It's still a perishable item over time, but shit, we're not wearing them out. And that was his idea. All I did was glue it together. Well, that's produced 2 other products. So now we came up with, a friend of mine said, why don't we put 2 of these silicon bodies on the ground and one on the back? And we're not, we're getting there, but we're making quad systems. Is it for everybody? No, it's certainly not. Is it a mountain tool? No, it absolutely isn't. If I was hunting in mainland Europe or Africa, yes, I would take the product. But we've also now come out with a Springbok tripod. So John Tumulty, our operations director, who's got a brain infinitely bigger than me, and he has a license to manage badgers, which got a TB issue in the UK. So he does a lot of nighttime hunting on that and foxes. He said, I think we should make a tripod version. Sounds stupid, James. It sounds stupid. A silicon body tripod?
Not to me.
Oh my God, this thing is unbelievably good. And we took Terry Huin, really lovely guy, one of your SEAL team leaders, the Captain Phillips film. We took him to Serbia hunting last year, and he got behind this thing and he twisted it. So he locked the silicon body, he twisted it so all the legs engage on each other. And suddenly you've got a really stable silicon body tripod. So we call it the Terry Twister. But I think
Terry's a legend, man.
Yeah,
He's a nice guy too.
I tell you what, after what he's done, he was so understated and just so humble. Freaking, he'd be on my invite list any day. Very, very good man. Lovely guy. So we had a good time in Serbia and Bosnia, and I built a good relationship with him. Simply lovely guy. So he get all these little tricks. Again, like the hoplite, how we were using that yesterday. You push, because it's not a camera tripod and it's a hunting tripod, and we put the control module into the body of the hoplite. You can run one leg between the other 2, back it up, and then you can do really steep angle down shots. You will know as well as us, it's difficult. That's the worst sort of position to get a solid platform because you've got nothing to purchase on. So
Yep.
if you're hunting chamois or tar in New Zealand, or as we had yesterday that's the difference between a hit and a miss, a success and an epic failure. So it's Lego. The Spartan system is a Lego system. It's a Meccano system that you adapt for your environment. We're not dictating.
Yeah,
I
it's
think
great.
that's,
I use it all the time. Go ahead, Darren.
sorry, James. I was just going to add to that. I think it's one of the things that we've found with the Spartan, with our guides and with our team here, is that it's a toolbox of tools for us. We can adapt to the moment, whether it be a quick shot that's required or a follow up or whatever it might be. But the whole system is brilliant for us to be able to run our spotting scopes on. We can swap over to a rifle. We can go from 2 legs to 3, back to 1. We can extend it. We've just got that versatility, and it's that literally one tool in your pack or on the side of your hunting kit that you can grab and adapt. And I think it's really important in New Zealand for hunting.
Yeah.
What's good for us? Oh, sorry, James, go on.
I was mule deer hunting in Montana last year and had hunted for 5 days. And my whole goal was just to find a 4-point mule deer buck. Didn't want anything big and fancy, but that's what I was looking for. And we were having a hard time turning them up. And then the second to the last day, saw this muley up on the horizon, getting close to dark, and he took off at a trot. And I did too, to try to cut him off. And I was going up the side of this hill. I was way out of breath, and he made it way faster than I ever thought he would. And there was a very narrow gap where he was going to be stopped. I had that springbuck bipod. I dropped down. The deer stopped and looked back towards me. I was able to take one breath, let it out, and just as I was starting to touch the trigger, he was looking back to the direction that he was planning on going, and that was enough time. If I had had any other type of support system, I don't think I could have been fast enough to shoot that deer. And as it was just shy of 300 yards. I was shooting my 6mm Creedmoor in a Manor stock. I was shooting a 90 grain Nosler, and it went all the way through him. And I've never seen a heart get destroyed the way that bullet destroyed that deer's heart. It was a perfect shot. The deer died almost instantly. And, I couldn't have been happier with how all of that came together, because that was a situation, right? I needed a little bit of elevation to get out of the grass. I was laying sideways on a hill, so I needed the adaptability that silicon provided to be able to just instantly get me stable enough. And then it all had to be within seconds. And it just came together. I'll give you another quick story about stability, because I think that's the crux of this issue, right? It doesn't matter how good you are or how good your rifle is. If it's not stable, then you are going to start to develop insecurities while you're looking through the optic, and it's going to get worse, and you're not going to be able to make as good of a shot as if you're stable and your confidence grows and you can execute the shot correctly. I was in Hawaii last week spearfishing, and we're in blue water. There's some sharks around. We've got a flasher out. We're chumming, just looking into blue nothingness and very deep water off of the big island, and a wahoo shows up. Oh no. And he starts to come up through the chum. My friend Kylie takes a fish and she throws it out onto the surface about 15 feet away from me. And this Ono swims straight up to it and starts cutting through it. Now I'm on the surface, so I'm bobbing around with the waves. You can't shoot like that because you're not stable. So I ducked down into the water to get stable enough, and this fish is slashing back through it, and he won't slow down. And I'm tracking him with this gun. I'm shooting an Aimrite 140 Wrath, like the best spear gun in the world. And as I start to come up in the water column, because I'm buoyant at this depth, I didn't realize that I was heading back to the surface. And when this fish stopped, I was back on the surface, and now I'm bobbing around in the waves, and I took the shot and I missed. If I had ducked back down into the water, I would have been stable again and could have made a good shot. But I was so focused on the fish and not on myself that I lost that opportunity. This all came down to stability, right? And stability in the ocean is using the ocean, like the big part of the ocean, to be stable, not the small part on the surface. Um, we find this in every aspect of our lives, whether it's in relationships or businesses or friendships. Stability is what we can grow from. It's what we can actually, it's what we can actually build off of. It is so critically important. And there are lots of ways to stabilize a rifle. Most of them are very heavy. Most of them are permanently attached to make it so that you can't put your gun in and out of your pack. It catches on brush and gear and all kinds of stuff, and it's pretty cumbersome. And up until now, it's also been very expensive if you want something that is lightweight and also provides stability. But now you've put it all together after many, many, many years of work. I I I just want to thank you on behalf of American hunters who are working hard for their money, and they want to make that good shot without, spending half of a paycheck on the ability to do it. Like, thanks.
Yeah. Well, no, thank you, James. And from you, I take that as a big credit, because you're a very direct, straight shooter, and I really value what you say. And I think from Spartan's perspective, it's very exciting for me because, as I say, this is a whole area of hunters we've failed to support. Use that word deliberately. Well, now we can support that host of hunters. And the amount of emails, and I really like them. I'll get a dad that's got his young son out and they just shot their elk, and he said, I couldn't have done it if I hadn't had the Javelin bipod or the hoplite. But invariably, these are quite wealthy people. I want to get that presence into the whole of the US market. There's, as I say, as we started, there's good cost-sensitive rifles out there now. Now there's good cost-sensitive Spartan answers. And some of these cost-sensitive rifle makers might start putting gunsmith adapters in. We'll watch this space. I'm very, very excited. The gunsmith adapter is the key element because it's in the rifle. And then, as you said, you can use your springbok, you can use your bipod, you can add bits to it later. You can build a quad system. There's so many things you can do. So you're hunting in Oregon one day, you're going to Scotland the next. Well, you might need different support tools because the environment is so different.
Yeah.
So I say this, as long as I understand what the sickness is, I've probably got the right drugs to fix it. Our challenge at Spartan is we're not necessarily good yet at explaining the storyline of how these products work and what's their best application. We have a young, very gifted guy called Ollie Adams working for us now, who's got a great head on his shoulders, who's building this, right, the whitetail hunter. What will he need? The mule deer hunter. What will he need? I'm hunting fallow buck. What will I need? I'm doing tar. And we're going to start building these storylines with people like yourself to help us build this. So people know, right, yeah, I can get away with this. But if I had to have one thing in the mountains, getting back to the stability, that little Javelin light is going to do the job.
Yep.
We know it's going to do the job. And it's $100. I spent 9-10 months dreaming about my holiday, my hunt, my adventure. Don't lose it by resting on a pack and letting your rifle slip all over the place. Your heart's going to be bouncing through your mouth because you're excited. You waited for this opportunity. Stack everything up and get that stable support platform. As you so well said, stability is everything. In life, whatever we do, we need a stable platform.
Yep. Okay. Where can people find out more about this bipod, and where can people find out more about Avon Valley Safaris?
So I'll start and then you can talk down. So this is a product that we're selling through the website, but they're based in the US. So any American customer is going to get it within probably 48 hours. So it's a fulfillment center. That's brilliant because our big challenge was we used to ship from the UK and it's painful. It costs money to ship. People pay duty. Now they don't. So this is really exciting. So they can go to our website, Spartan Precision Equipment or Javelin Bipod, and there's two options. You've got the Javelin Light at the $100. You've got the Javelin Light TL for $150. Remember, they don't come with an adapter, but you get an opportunity to buy a classic adapter I believe an M-lock or a Picatinny adapter at half price. It's $10. So don't forget to press that button if you haven't got a Spartan ready rifle. Alternatively, if you've got a Spartan ready rifle, you don't need any of the adapters.
Perfect.
Alternatively, you could buy the gunsmith adapter, which is our cheapest adapter anyway, and do what you've done and drill them in the stock, and it's done. Yeah.
Yep. And that's my recommendation too, folks, just so you know. Like that's what I prefer to do. If you have a classic rifle stock, whether it's wood or synthetic, that's my preferred system.
And for me, James, if you would like to get in touch and discuss the opportunity to come to New Zealand, first option would be our website, which is www.avonvalleysafaris.co.nz, which is obviously the New Zealand bit on the end. There's a page there you can send an inquiry through if you put your number on there. More than happy to jump on a WhatsApp call or personally talk with each person around what. It's really important for me to understand what someone wants to get out of their trip. Do they want to bring their wife? Do they want to bring their 16-year-old son for his first trophy or whatever it might be? So for me, it's very, very important to get that personal chat with someone to understand it before we start putting together something as an option. So reach out to us in any of those or email, and I will come back to you very quickly around a time and an opportunity to chat and work from there on it.
You had 3 generations of one family here last week, didn't you?
3 generations. We had granddad and then the son, and then the young 16-year-old boy took his first Red Stag trophy for his birthday. So we really enjoy those types of family trips, and we had a lot of fun for the week. So.
Oh, I love that. Well, folks, you'll also find links to both of these gentlemen's websites down there in the podcast description, as per usual. And if you have trouble with that, you can just reach out to me on Instagram, and I'll get you pointed in the right direction, because I take time to do that for everybody, even though there's an awful lot of you these days. I so hope that the rest of your hunt down there is incredible, Rob. It seems like you're having a great time. I appreciate all the pictures you've been sending me. It's making me jealous. I'd be even more jealous if I didn't have some grand adventures of my own going on right now. And Darren, I'm so looking forward to meeting you next year and getting to see that country. And we'll do another show while I'm down there, and we'll just kind of talk more about New Zealand and some of the conservation issues that you guys are facing and what you're doing about it. And I really want to talk more about that meat program in the future too.
Appreciate that, James. We look forward to chatting more on what you want to achieve while you're here, and really look forward to hosting you and showing you what New Zealand's got to offer.
Thank you, sir. All right. Thanks, gentlemen. Any parting thoughts?
No, I'm pretty happy with what we've covered off, I think. I'll be seeing you later in the year, James, so I'm looking forward to that. I've got some adventures lined up, so we'll talk some more about that. I've got Macedonia, Tajikistan, and Transylvania. So
all right.
Really nice, exciting. So we'll have to catch up on a podcast and discuss the successes and failures of those hunts and see how they go.
I love it. All right. Well, be safe. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, James.
Thank you to everyone who has taken the time out of their busy lives to write a review for the show and share it with their friends. I'm extremely proud of how intelligent, engaged, and adventurous this audience is. Original music for the Six Ranch podcast is written and performed by Justin Hay. Art for the Six Ranch podcast was created by John Chatelain and digitized by Celia Harlander. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next week.